Well, hello everyone, and good morning. I'm glad to be alive. What about you? Let me sprinkle some love out there to you. Here it is. Grab a hold to it. Yes, we're live this morning. Welcome to Tea Time, where we have live discussions about things that affect us daily in our lives. Every Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Tonie Anderson-Steele, and I am your host today, and I'm glad to be your host today. Alongside of me, you can see our special guest, attorney Mary Williams. She wears many hats, and as we go through this program, we will discuss some of those hats because we want to know more. I want to know more. If I want to know more, you should want to know more too about us, about everything that is going on around us that affects our livelihoods. So, welcome, Miss Mary Williams, attorney Mary Williams. It is so good to see you today, and I'm glad you agreed to be on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Good morning, Dr. Steele, and everyone out there. My name is Mary C. Williams. I am a national election protection attorney. I am based here in Florida now, having spent the previous 20 years actually in D.C. and also working with civil rights groups across the nation. I'm based here in Florida now, working with a coalition of organizations throughout the state on making sure we protect the rights of all people here in the state of Florida and throughout the country. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a delight. Let me tell you. And I thank you again for being on the show. Now, today we're going to discuss voting rights untouched. If you're paying attention, you know voting rights were untouched in Alabama, right? And I'm like, but what about Florida? We need the same thing. I mean, like right now, not next year, not next 2 years. We need it right now. So, what I want to do is discuss some of that. And I know you have the ins and out on most of those things that occur. And I want to be enlightened today, and I want the guests to be enlightened about that. We want the same thing in Florida that the state of Alabama received from the Supreme Court.
Correct. And we are working on that. And this is stemming from the Voting Rights Act of 1965, whereas the United States, the federal government, and the courts agreed that to protect the rights of Black voters, African American voters, to elect the person of their choice, their color, their representative, that the districts and the way we're elected to Congress and other offices, there are districts, and it's called reapportionment. We call it redistricting, and it's reapportionment. Every 10 years during the census, we divide into districts with equal population, voting population numbers, and we get to elect the representative of our choice. On the national level, in Florida, for example, we have 28 congressional districts to elect representatives to Congress. Throughout Florida, we're also divided by county, regions, and others for the state, on the state level. So when the census is done every 10 years, when we decide that population and we redraw those maps to elect our representatives, they must meet certain criteria. And that is set by the law and set by the courts. And of course, in Alabama, which recently the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a decision by the Alabama State Court that said that the Black voters in the state of Alabama had sufficient number of voters, Black voters, to have not one elected representative, but two. So you get to elect your representative by the numbers in your population, in your district. So if you have a district that is drawn, a map drawn with a majority minority population, then it is likely, and it's usually from 45% to on up, that you can elect a person of your choice, of your community.
Yes.
And Alabama had a 27% Black population. But the way that the map was drawn was to dilute their vote And that goes against the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, that if there is a contiguous minority population with sufficient numbers to elect their candidate of choice, if they vote in the way that most of them vote, they should be able to do that. And the maps should be drawn not to prevent this from happening.
Right.
And this is what is called gerrymandering. And we have seen now, not only in Florida and Alabama and the southern states, but throughout this country, where the Republican Party, and not because of any particular opposition or anything, but the fact is, if they are in the power, in the they're the power holders, in all a majority power holder in the state, and they're drawing the map, they may not draw the maps to ensure their reelection, or to keep, or to block out any other communities from being able to elect their own representative. And that is a very big problem when you have a majority party in office and in the state legislature drawing those maps to keep themselves in power, or to increase their power, so that they will definitely discriminate. And this is what has happened in Florida, where we have a majority population of Republicans holding office. They drew a map here in Florida, and it eliminated 2 minority districts throughout the state, one in Miami and one in the Duval County. And Al Lawson lost his seat. He had been a long time representative. We have 28 congressional districts, and I think 8 of the 28 are held by Democrats, minus 2. So we're down 2 minority districts in the state of Florida. Now, what that means, not only locally, we don't get heard in Congress. Our voice has been actually silenced to an extent, but it also means that on the national scale, where Congress, the House of Representatives, where we have a very narrow margin, like 4 or 5 different representatives, that can make all the difference. The 2 lost seats in Florida, and Alabama lost 1 in their map, but they will get that 1 back. That's 3. There's a difference in the vote. Republicans hold something like 228 seats, and the Democrats hold maybe like 218 or something like that. Like it's a very small margin, 5 to 10 at times, in the voting. So if you belong, and one of the reasons the race comes into play along with the party here in Florida, because Florida in 2010 passed and approved the fair district mapping. And that particular state law said that the maps cannot be drawn to protect or prevent an opposing party from actually voting. And so the maps cannot only be drawn based on in order to keep Black people from electing, a racial minority from electing their own, but it cannot be drawn to empower the sitting political party, which is the Democrats and Republicans. Because in a way, the race and the political parties are pretty much defined. Courts, the 2 things the courts looked at the Voting Rights Act here in Alabama and here, and we'll be looking at in Florida. Florida drew its map. It's in the court system now. Is whether the maps were drawn with the intent to discriminate, or the effect that, even though they didn't have the intent to discriminate, which we do, they did, because our governor said that was why. Right? No racial, he's not going to do anything, draw any maps with racial considerations. Well, yes, you did, because you said, and diluted the racial power of the Black vote by diluting it and dividing all the Black community and spreading it out into 4 majority white Republicans.
That's correct. Yes.
So that was intentional. He has voiced his intent. So that's not a problem for the court. His intent was to dilute the black vote and
Mhm.
stop black people from electing the candidate of their choice, or
Correct.
being able to, in the sense that the majority of the Supreme Court, or the minority of the Supreme Court of voters, which included Clarence Thomas, who did not vote in support of Alabama's upholding the Voting Rights Act, of course, which was
Mm.
black people. He did not vote. He was not one of them who voted in favor of this. He is
Yes.
actually opposed to this based on the
Yes,
racial
he did.
aspect. He does not believe that race should be a factor. But we know that if party is a factor, that 89 to 90% of black voters are Democrats. Okay? It's
Yes.
easy to say it's a party thing. But here in Florida, even a party drawn map is
Mhm.
awful because it's not fair to the
Mhm.
electorate, because the party that is in office can easily continue to stay in office by
Right.
drawing the maps that will benefit them and them only. And so in 2010, Florida decided no. So there are two issues for Florida voters, Jacksonville and Miami, and those who are in it. We here in Escambia County, and I saw this in the last redistricting in 2020, we in Escambia County have only one black county commissioner, or one majority district in Escambia County, for example. That's District 3. But I know from the numbers that if we had really gotten together, we might have a chance at drawing two majority minority districts. And that,
Yes, because isn't in the Escambia County, how many black voters do we have that are Democrats? I think.
well, it's not a matter of Democrats, it's the number
Mhm.
of voting black voting population. And
Mhm.
I think in Escambia County, we have a 27%,
Mhm.
which is the same thing Alabama had in
Mhm.
their voting black voters population.
Mhm.
We have a considerable number. And
Okay.
I was there partially for the county. I am new to Escambia
Mhm.
County. I arrived here in
Mhm.
2018 and really
Mhm.
didn't settle until 2019. But
Mhm.
watching the numbers and sitting in, what the Escambia County Commission did was, we have like 60%, 65% black vote in
Mhm.
District 3. It's all
Right.
called packing, which is
Right.
not actually lawful in the mapping, redistricting maps.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, if there was a possibility
Mhm.
of drawing a map with, say,
Mhm.
40%
Mhm.
in District 3, and then
Mhm.
another 35 to 40% in say, District 4 or
Mhm.
another district, that would create another majority
Mhm.
potential for election. We should
Right.
fund that. And that is called fair mapping. We have
Mhm.
to be participants, but we do not have enough people who
Mhm.
are experts
Mhm.
or well versed in this
Mhm.
particular process. And it's
Mhm.
so important because
Mhm.
for 10 years,
Mhm.
this governs who can run, who can hold office, who
Mhm.
can come up, and who you're going to vote for.
Mhm.
And if you don't have anyone that looks like you or
Mhm.
represents your interests,
Right.
you're not likely to vote. So
That is true.
this.
I understand what you're saying, and so I would like for us to today, those who are watching, or that we commit to looking out for ourselves. We can't assume that they're going to do the right thing by us. I mean, we know that from years back, but it's not so great this time. There's a lot of pull. To the left and to the right, and we need to find a stable place, because every time a politician gets in with a whim, this is the way I see it, my opinion, gets in with a whim to make a change, is always in the negative on us. So indeed, the intent is obvious, that they want to discriminate, or they don't want us to be successful. And I heard what you said, that it's a policy that's set in place for 10 years. So uh,
Years.
that 10 years, we need to establish our own way of understanding these laws, in layman's terms. They have the terms on the paper, for us to read, but sometimes it's so egregious you can't even determine what's being said, and it's the deliberate attempt to keep us in the dark. And
It
I
is
hate being
important.
in yes, and I hate being in the dark for such an important situation as a decision that's made for me and for people in this county and all across these states in the United States for 10 years or more. You know, it's a deliberate attempt to keep us from moving forward, from propelling us forward. So we got to get smarter. We are smart. We are very smart, but sometimes we put all of our eggs in the same basket, and we need to spread those eggs around so we can be involved in this, that, and the other. You know, we need a team
We have to
to,
be at the table. We
yes,
really
to
have
be
to
at
be
the
at the
table.
table when these
And
decisions are being made.
yes,
If we're
yes,
not at this
yes,
process, we're not at the
absolutely.
table.
Yes,
And
and we
we're
need to.
part of a coalition
Mm,
throughout the state of Florida, and we
mm,
don't see many people looking like us
yes.
there because and a lot of it, unfortunately, goes back to people being participants, having the time and the effort and the
Mm-hmm,
finances. You
mm-hmm,
know, we have evolved, and then
mm-hmm,
from the 1960s, we have come up, and
mm-hmm,
from Selma, Alabama, you know, we were there.
Montgomery,
We
yes.
did all of this, but a lot
Birmingham,
of those rights are eroding.
Memphis,
They're being
yes.
taken away by this current administration. And this goes back to the
Oklahoma,
census.
Ryan,
You know,
right.
the census is so important. We must be counted. And if we
Mhm,
don't stand up to be counted, then that
mhm,
determines the number
mhm.
of black people in the district because those
I
numbers
understand.
are important. And if you're not counted, and
Mhm.
you're not part of the census, funding
Right.
doesn't come to your community either, in addition to voting and representing. But we all know that this effort by the opposition to suppress the black vote, because there has been a prediction by the census many years ago that black and brown people will outnumber white people by the year of 20, I think it was 2043 or something. But
Mhm,
I do
mhm.
believe that the population numbers have been a little skewed. This was a prediction many years ago, a
Yes,
decade
sir.
or so ago. And so now you see the gap closing. Black people, the more black people turn out to vote, the chances are you're going to increase in being able to sit at the table and make those decisions. You're going to understand how those decisions are being made. So, in order to address that and to stem that train moving, to stop it or slow
Mhm.
it down,
Yes.
there are all those legislations.
Mhm.
There are so many legislative issues that have come this state in this state of Florida that are designed truly unconstitutional, by the way, unlawful,
Mhm.
illegal action taken by this current
Mhm.
administration in order to suppress the black vote and to dilute our power so that we will not advance. And there were a number of bills passed this legislature.
And you mentioned suppressing the vote.
Correct.
I know there's a glare and you can't see this card clearly, but some of the Escambia County residents. There we go. That's not too bad. They're getting this card in the mail, and I appreciate receiving the mail. But uh there's a loss, especially I think for a senior citizen. I'm going to speak on behalf of my mother, who's 94 years old, born in 1929. I received the same, I take care of her mail and all, and I received the same card a few years ago, and I did what they required me to do, which was go to there's a QR code on the card, and you go to the QR code, log in, and you have to she doesn't have a driver's license, but she does have a Florida ID. You have to include the Florida ID number and the last four digits of your social security number to vote via mail. Okay, my thing is, me personally, I'm thinking once a voter has been a registered voter in any county in this state or any other state, that unless you get a death certificate saying that they're deceased or they've moved, or some notice saying that they've moved out of the state of Florida, out of this county, I don't think that this should be required every 2 years. Suppose I just happen to be the caregiver for my mom. But suppose there is another senior citizen out there and there's no one helping them with their mail. And, not everybody is tech savvy nowadays, even though it's not going away. And we do need to try to keep refreshing ourselves daily as it changes daily. But my concern is, why are senior citizens being aggravated like this?
Well,
Especially if they've been voting for years. And I know my mom has never missed an opportunity to vote. So at some point, you should say, "Oh, she's registered to vote." Every session that it was available for her to vote, let's give her a pass.
no, this legislative session and vote by mail, part of the whole idea that there has been voter fraud, which has not existed in the state of Florida by
Non-existent.
no means or anything like that, right? And the trying to vote by mail, that was part of the legislation packet that passed in the special session and all of this. And all, and yes, everyone, if you want to vote by mail, now you don't have to use that QR code. You can go to the Scambia Votes, to the Supervisors of Election website and pull it up, or you can go walk in and and make your request in person. You still can go or everywhere. You know that's a convenience, and the fact that he's notified people is a convenience. But every 2 years, if you want to vote by mail and receive a ballot, you must make that request again. The idea is, and of course, it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars, and
It
everyone
really
complains.
a waste of a postage right here. You know what I'm saying?
To post
Hmm.
it's a waste
Hmm.
of an
Hmm.
attempt to
Paper.
vote again in every
Hmm.
way, vote by mail, because a lot of
Hmm.
people in the last couple of elections voted by mail. I'm an early voting advocate. That is my choice.
Me too.
I want early voting. I want you to be able to walk in, not wait in line, go with your ID card, sign it in, punch it in that number. But
That's it. That's it.
I'm
Simple enough.
is convenient for people. That is
Yes.
a place where we would want to be able to
Hmm.
trust. But on election day, one of the things we must get away from is that we don't want everyone to wait until election day, because
No, not at all.
it's too many for us. If you're working and
Hmm.
emergency comes up, there may be a long line. There may be an incident with your voting card.
Hmm.
There may be a question about your signature, which is
Hmm.
what's happening with the elderly. One of the reasons they want you to do it every 2 years is
Hmm.
because they want to clear the roles of
Hmm.
people who may not have it, but
Hmm.
also to make it more difficult for others to help and assist the elderly in
Hmm.
filling out their
I
voting.
am too,
So,
Mary. I am too a serious advocate about that early voting. I have not had a bad experience as it relates to waiting in line at all.
yes.
All of the people volunteering to man the voting site has been friendly and professional, and I really do enjoy that. Our early voting also gives you an opportunity if there's a problem to correct that so that you can vote in
Correct.
that particular election.
That
So
And
yes, and
that
so
is where we are with my
mhm,
eyes on the prize winning
mhm,
strategies.
mhm,
We come up with, over the years, specific strategies to help
mhm.
Black people, and particularly any minority community and
That's correct.
nonpartisan,
Mhm, mhm,
that want to vote. And the idea, we looked at Escambia County, and in 2020 we did we did the transportation that was financed by Black Voters Matter grant, and
mhm.
we actually brought people to those sites in the
Yes,
community.
I remember
We were
hearing it
there
on
at
the news.
different locations.
Mhm, mhm,
That really helped. And for the first time in 2020, we actually early voting. We even had the supervisor of elections to put
mhm,
the early voting site in Century. Century,
mhm,
which is 35, 40 miles from here, did not
mhm,
have early voting sites for the first
mhm,
time in 2020.
mhm. That's
They were
great.
to go early and early voting. Century is a
That's
predominantly
wonderful.
Black city. We
Absolutely.
must advocate for ourselves, but if
Mhm,
we
mhm,
do not know what the law says we're
mhm.
entitled to, we
Yes.
do not know how to access our rights. And
Mhm,
that is important in voting. But we do need people to ask that question, come out and support
mhm,
elections. But if we don't have people that look like us, that
Mm-hmm.
that's our views, that talk
Mm-hmm.
like us, or want things that we want for our
Mm-hmm.
community, our
Right.
children, and our jobs, and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, we're not
Mm-hmm.
apt to come. But it starts with us first voting, and it may not be everybody on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Right.
people on the ballot that we can start. And once you start voting, you'll
Mm-hmm.
find that your voice is heard.
Mm-hmm.
Each,
Mm-hmm.
each vote is counted. And so we,
Well, we're going to close with this point. As you were mentioning the voters' rights of 1964 and its passing. Of course, the ballots don't always have the people that we would like to see on the ballots. But here's the thing: we had some people who lost their lives trying to give us this privilege, and we should never not take it lightly to vote. So if you can't vote on someone that's on the ballot, go in and write a name in for yourself. Okay. But
correct.
the point here is don't miss the opportunity to vote. Don't think that your vote does not count. I know we've had issues of them trying to make it not count. That's one reason why we should fight the most to vote. Our ancestors did it for us, blood was shed for a right to vote. So we should always take advantage of an opportunity to vote. And so, as we close out the show, I want to thank Miss Mary Williams for all of her attorney Mary Williams, for all of her engaging information about the voting rights and our privileges, and just explaining it in detail where we can understand it. And so, from this segment, we should really someone should be calling, "Hey, let's get that team together." The information is on the screen, on the marquee, flashing by. Where you can start something. We need to engage our young people into this type of activity, and I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you for listening. And remember, I'm here with guests every Saturday, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I'm delighted to do this. And all of the guests have, when asked, eagerly said yes, which is a plus. I have not received any no's, and we have a comment. And I guess I want to share the comment, and the comment is every important topic. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. That's from one of our guests that are listening right now, and we sure do appreciate him taking the time to make that comment for us, because it is an important situation here that we're in, to get firsthand knowledge from respectable people in the community who knows, who knows, and so continue to pump us up so that we can even do better on the shows to come. If you want to be on the show, reach out www.tsteele.com at any time. I'm really an open book, and I want to keep it that way. A transparent is what I want to be. And our guests are transparent in what they share with us. And so we appreciate you joining us today. And we're going to close out at this time. And we thank you for joining us today. I must tell you that again, over and over again. So many times we just assume people are thankful, but I want to let you know from my mouth that I thank you. And we'll see you next Saturday, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Enjoy your weekend and be safe. Thank you. Bye bye.